let's go to the next one. What constitutes a practicing Catholic? Right? What constitutes a practicing Catholic? I think this is an important uh, question for me in itself, and that you may be able to help answer. But you also may have this question, so it can work either way. What constitutes a practicing Catholic? This is a video coming from Ascension Presents, and of course, this is one of those videos that Father Mike is involved in, and I'm sure he will give us some answers. So let's not waste any time. Let's go right to it, and let's take a look.
Hi, my name is Father Mike Schmitz, and this is Ascension Presents. So a number of years ago, one of our students, she's a young woman, she had a friend. She invited her friend to go with her to Mass off campus because school wasn't in session, it was summertime. And so she drove this young man to the cathedral. And on the way there, he was raised Catholic. On the way there, she said, if you aren't a practicing Catholic, you can't receive Holy Communion unless you go to confession first. And he was like, wait, what? What? I was raised Catholic. And she's like, yeah, but you're not a practicing Catholic. And so then, when school started, like the next week, he came to Mass, and afterwards he said, I have some questions. And his big question was this: what is it to be a practicing Catholic? I thought, that's a great question. So we started meeting and talking about what it is to be a practicing Catholic.
Let me pause it right there because I had the same epiphany when I went back to Peru. My father passed away somewhere around 2016, I believe. And after, I'm pretty sure this might be a thing of Catholic Church as well. I mean, we were in the Catholic Church when we did his first year, I believe it was, of passing away. And we kind of did the church announced, praying for his soul and all of that. We went to the ceremony, we went to church, and they were doing the Eucharist. And I thought, you know what? I've been baptized, and I always thought you have to be baptized. That's it, but no, you have to be a practicing Catholic, and that's what I found out. You have to be a practicing Catholic. Now I wonder though, what would happen if you just got in line and went and got your the body of Christ and the blood of Jesus, and what would happen? Would they deny you? I mean, how would they know if you're lying or telling the truth? Obviously, I'm sure it's a more of a moral, personal thing. You shouldn't do it, so you shouldn't do it and shouldn't do it. But yeah, I mean, same thing that the guy here, that Father Mike is talking about, the same thing. So let's continue.
So, what does the Church say it is to be a practicing Catholic? What is it to say, I'm not just Catholic in name only, but, it's a part of my everyday life? Well, a couple things. The Church says, well, we have to, observe the 10 Commandments. We have to assent to church teaching. And then the third thing is to do our best to follow the 5 precepts of the Catholic Church. In the Catechism of the Catholic Church, I think starting in Article 2041 or paragraph 2041, it talks about these 5 precepts of the Church. Now, what it says is that these precepts are the indispensable minimum, or another translation is the very necessary minimum for life. Basically, the Church is kind of saying that if these aren't there, that life connected with Jesus, connected with the Church, it's not there. I don't know if you know this, but I think something like 90% of Americans believe that there's some kind of God. So 90% of Americans, 90% of Americans are theists. And yet most of us, the way we live our lives, we're practical atheists. We're practicing atheism. Because why? Because we often make decisions not in light of this God that we claim exists. So these 5 precepts of the Church, the very necessary minimum, the indispensable minimum, are basically just, are you alive? Are you connected to the Church? Here's number 1, going to Mass on Sundays and holy days of obligation. So every single Sunday, a practicing Catholic has to go to Mass, and every holy day of obligation. That might sound incredibly overwhelming or demanding, but that's roughly, I don't know, I'm bad at math, 65 hours of church every year. That's it. The indispensable minimum, the requirement, just go to Mass every Sunday and every holy day of obligation. So it's not overwhelming. Number 2 is go to confession at least once a year. Go to confession at least once a year. That's what we're called to do. Number 3 is receive Holy Communion at least once every year during the Easter season. What had happened in the past is actually at one point, people were staying away from Holy Communion because they thought the Eucharist is too holy and I'm too unholy. I could never possibly receive Holy Communion. I could never possibly be in a state where I'm worthy of, can I have worthy reception of Holy Communion. Even if I've just gone to confession, there's something wrong. So they would stay away from Holy Communion. And so at one point, the Pope had to say, listen, one of the precepts, you have to receive Holy Communion at least once a year during the Easter season. Why? Because Jesus loves you. He gives the Eucharist to feed us because he wants intimacy and communion with us. Number 4 is observe the prescribed days of fasting and abstinence. Now, this is incredible. So days of penance are Fridays throughout the whole year. Days of abstinence are Fridays throughout Lent and Ash Wednesday. Days of abstinence means we avoid meat. The 2 days of fasting, we only have 2 days of fasting in the entire 365-day calendar year. That's Ash Wednesday and Good Friday. And that fasting is what? It's, have 2 small meals and 1 meal, regular size meal that doesn't exceed the size of the 2 small meals combined. You think about this, that's not very demanding because if you live in the Western world or developed world, developed countries, your fast day could still be more food than most people in the rest of the world eat on a normal day. So just observe those days of fasting and abstinence. And the 5th precept of the Catholic Church is to provide for the material needs of the church according to your ability. It doesn't even say provide for the material needs of the church by giving 10% of your income. It says according to your ability. Whatever you can do, just help the church out. Think about that. I remember when I came upon these, I talked about them. At one point, this man wrote me a letter saying, that's ridiculous. This is crazy. That might be fine for some monk on a mountaintop somewhere, but for regular human beings, no one could possibly do this. I'm thinking, wait, these are the minimum requirements. This is the church being absolutely super generous on what it means to be a practicing Catholic. Not just a nominal Catholic, but one who lives their faith out. Now, I was talking to this man about this, and he was like, okay. And we walked through this whole kind of story. And actually, in the course of this, talked about the story of the gospel and the story of the church and the story of Jesus Christ calling him to live in the church, to live up, to rise up to this, and actually transcend this. So he started praying. He started to be part of a Bible study. By the end of that year, he had entered seminary. This June, this man is going to be ordained a priest for our diocese. Wow. His friend, she could have said, I'm embarrassed. I don't want to tell him that he can't receive Holy Communion if he hasn't been going to Mass. So I'll just be quiet. And you know what would have happened? Nothing. But because she was willing to, in love, just speak the truth to her friend. And this man, in days from today, will be ordained a priest of Jesus Christ in the Catholic Church. And he will give us the Eucharist. And he will give God's reconciliation through confession. And this man, already he's holy. Already he's just it's incredible to see the transformation in this man's life. I can't imagine how many people he will lead to heaven. Yeah. Because his friend was willing to say, hey, by the way, I don't want to be rude, but if you're not a practicing Catholic, you can't receive Holy Communion. And that prompted him to ask these questions.
Unbelievable.
If you're asking the question, I think it also means that God has a plan for your life, just like he has a plan for my buddy's life, my future brother in order's life. For all of us here at Ascension Presents, my name is Father Mike. God bless.
Wow. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. What a story. What a story there. It got heavy quickly, didn't it? It got heavy quickly. It got intense quickly. But that's the way God works, God puts us in different positions and gives us different challenges for us to figure out, not alone, but with him. To figure out what we need to do. What constitutes as a practicing Catholic? It's pretty easy. You just got to give yourself to God in Jesus Christ and do the very minimum. How hard is that? I was just putting myself in those shoes and see, what am I a practicing Catholic? Obviously, I'm going to a Baptist church, and I'm going to that, but I go to that every week. I've made myself. I've been doing sportscasting, soccer, Premier League, English football on a weekly basis, and I was actually putting my wife, and I was telling her, you go to church, I'll stay here. And I thought that was so wrong. I felt so bad that I was doing that, and then all of a sudden, I just kept feeling empty and empty and empty, and I said, you know what? I'm I can be available for football. I love football. I love soccer, but I'm going to have to also prioritize my faith and prioritize my wife, prioritize my kids, prioritize my family, and maybe I can, in my own way, not in an extravagant way or a preaching way, because I don't know all the answers, but maybe in my actions I can bring my definitely bring my kids into knowing the truth and growing up in church. Not only that, but maybe bring somebody that you know that knows me that might be interested in them seeing me at church might feel like, hey, look, Chris is going to church. Let me try it out. You never know, right? Kind of like with the story here with father and his buddies, his buddy. So you never know. But most importantly, I needed to get right with God. And from now on, I made it clear I'm not giving that up. I'm not giving my Sundays up for anything. I may have had a horrible week, a sinful week, and because we all sin. May have not been the best husband in the world that week. I may have not been the best father in the world that week. I may have not been the best co-worker in the world that week. But I'm not giving up on God in Jesus Christ. I'm going every Sunday. And every Sunday, something is going to get into my head. I'm going to be taught something about the Word of God. Um, and so, yeah, I made that decision, and it's actually making me feel really happy, really good. I feel joy in my heart. Days are tough, and as I said, once you start doing that, and you start devoting yourself to Jesus Christ fully, things are going to get tough because, as I said, the devil works hard too. If he believes that you are following Jesus Christ, his enemy, he's going to work hard to steer you away, and he's going to break your windshield many times, as he did me. I've already had to replace 3 windshields. I'm going to have to replace another one pretty soon. Every time I go back to church, and ended up leaving, by the way, going back to church, something happened like that. And until I realized, this is a good friend of mine that I love and adore. He's told me that's the devil working on you because you've been to church. You going back to church. And ultimately, I was letting the devil win every time. And I'm not going to do that no more. I'm not going to do it no more. I'm going to continue to go and continue to, most importantly, uh, steer my kids towards the right direction, which is God. And my oldest son, he's all about Jesus, all about watching Jesus cartoons and Jesus shows. It's all about it. He's prayed, and he prayed for us on Easter weekend, and it was unbelievable. He prayed over the meal, over a meal there. It was an unbelievable time. It was a proud moment for me, and that little boy has shown me a lot because I have never prayed before any of our meals. I always felt like I was not worthy, really. Like I'm nobody to pray in front of people and them listening to me pray. Um, and then that little boy just did it. Unbelievable. And he's taught me a lesson. And that's God working on him and working on me. So let me know if you like this video right here, if you like this reaction. What do you think? What constitutes a practicing Catholic? Are you practicing? Could I be considered a practicing Catholic if I don't have many Catholic churches around me? I live very much in a remote area, but I go to church every week. I practice um, I haven't been doing the fasting. We were actually going to avoid meat this past Easter as the Good Friday, but we didn't, and so maybe that's something that we need to bring back. We were going to actually, because people in Peru, they do it all the time. So we're going to eat fish. I think it was something that we thought of, and although the priest here said avoid meat, is in general. So it would be interesting to know the truth there. What would be the truth? So I would consider myself a practicing Catholic, I guess, based on what the father here has said. But the fact of the matter is, I'm not going to a Catholic church because I don't have the opportunity to. Is that okay? It'll be interesting to see to talk to a father about this or here. But let me know what you think in the comment section down below about this one as well. Good stuff from Father Schmitz. It's a good one. It's a good one. And I feel like the more we find these videos, the more we seek answers, the better we are. The freer we feel. And we just feel so good. We just feel so good. Listen, this is starting out to be a podcast, a long episode of the podcast. So probably the first one on religion, and we're going to continue to do that. Seeking Answers will be the name of this channel with Chris Rodriguez. I'm Chris. I'm a U.S. veteran, U.S. Army vet, and there'll be another interesting topic. What does the church think about war? Clearly, Pope Leo has been immediately from the get-go talking about we need to find peace. We need to get rid of war. And obviously the church is against war, totally. But could I be saved if I join the military? And if I did the duties of a soldier, what would the church think?